Grandpa worked for the US government. I quit what his exact role was, but he died last month of cancer, and during the last few weeks of his life he spilled the beans of some stuff regarding alien shit to me. Ike, if it's real or just an old dude on his deathbed pulling my leg. I loved Gramps. I have some time to spare. Ask me anything. Just to start off, here's a few random tidbits of Gramps lore. Some of this is pasting from a Google Doc I made of everything, so the writing is a little more formal here. Majestic, or MJ-12, from Conspiracy Theories and Stuff is not real. It's an op used as a distraction. The US government has a huge hand in UFO conspiracy theories and such, several prominent ufologists on their payroll. Greys are the first aliens he met. He was told this is because they're already so ubiquitous in popular culture, to the point where they've pretty much ceased to be alien, so it's the easiest and least unsettling alien to meet. He said it would be shocking how accurate our popular depictions of them are if not for the fact that their description was an intentional leak in preparation for the disclosure event that was to occur in the 1980s. Was being the operating word here. It never fucking happened. Reagan prevented disclosure in the early 80s. There was too much money to be made, and large corporations can't benefit from making ET tech available to public. Some ET tech has made it into private sector though. Gramps wouldn't say though. Greys are artificial but also organic. This is why some people have reported that something is wrong when they are face to face with them, like they don't belong. This is because of some sort of uncanny valley kind of effect going on, because we are looking at something that was not the result of natural processes, of evolution, but of careful genetic engineering. Don't get me wrong, they're not robots in the way we think of robots. They are fully organic. You ever see Blade Runner? They're like the replicants. They're robots, but they're flesh and bone.
What was Grandpa's background? How advanced are they really? Spill the beans, big bro.
No idea. I was always told he worked for government, but he had a degree in engineering. Depends on the species. The Greys are weird as fuck because they're not real in the sense that we are. They're not organically made. Greys were created by a race we call precursors to be worker drones. Precursors were a highly advanced civilization originally from the Zeta Reticuli. Went extinct only a few thousand years ago and left behind these little guys. Because they can't reproduce sexually, Greys use cloning. But because the tech they're using belongs to the precursors, and they've been created for very specific tasks with limits to learning and creative abilities, they don't quite understand it, just how to use it. So they're still figuring it out. The way Gramps explained to me is that they can't create stuff, so everything they have is made by a more advanced race. And they just know how to maintain it. So they're advanced, yes, but not like how we would say a civilization is advanced where they're able to create tech. I mostly know about the Greys. Desu Gramps didn't go into too much detail about the others. That's a hard one because so much of what we know about UFOs and aliens and shit from popular culture and conspiracy theories has kinda prepared us for it. Like, it's not surprising at all when you told me the US government turns a blind eye to fucked up shit the ALMs do. But they did try and prevent it with a treaty that Eisenhower signed, but they broke it really fast because the Greys didn't think they had to follow the treaty. They don't give a shit about anything. The treaty basically said we provide cadavers for their genetic stuff they're doing, and they leave live people alone, and that didn't last at all. The stuff that kinda got me is that the US government started actively abducting PPL and working with Greys on their experiments sometime around the 70s. That's where the Dulce base rumors, mostly fake and gay but some truth there, started. Oh, and before I forget, let me just lay out the other species for y'all. Pasting from my good old Gramps Google Doc I made. The precursors, who are extinct. The Greys. The Draco, original Terrans. Draco is the name we gave them. Their true name is unpronounceable. The Zetans, from the same system as the Greys. Grey physiology is based on them. Often referred to as praying mantis aliens. Zetans are not much more advanced than us save for the introduction of gray precursor tech a few hundred years before us. And the Nordic, a group that calls themselves Ida, which are actually the same as the tall whites. Almost nothing is known about them. And they are not as human-looking as others say. Nor are they blonde-haired blue-eyed people but have as much diversity as we do.
What was the meeting like? Did they just sit down and start talking over tea or?
Sorry, this is something I don't know. Gramps just said one day they met the aliens. Sorry, I know that's lame and a non-answer.
So have they been here a long time or do they just visit? I mean, if the Greys have been around for a while, do they hang out on Earth?
Depends on species. Most of them come visit. Draco have been around for way longer than we have and are from here. Some Greys and some Zetans live underground.
Might I'll bite. Did your Gramps knew anything about unofficial NASA's doing, like retrieving stuff from the moon? Ever said anything about Phil Schneider?
There is no such thing as Dulce Base. At least not anymore. It moved to the Pacific Ocean in what Grandpa called Pacific Base, but he said it went by a different name. He jokingly said he'd get sniped if he spoke the name. The Greys violated the treaty that Eisenhower had them sign, which outlined sanctioned and unsanctioned procedures. In a nutshell, a sanctioned procedure is anything that the US government has deemed acceptable for the Greys to participate in. At this time, the Greys could only perform these procedures on cadavers and livestock, provided by the US government. They had to stop abducting people. They reluctantly agreed to this, mostly just because the Greys do not like inconveniences, even the most minuscule ones, and the US government represented a not insignificant inconvenience to them. Even if our technology was severely behind theirs, they didn't want any trouble, and they wanted to be able to conduct their work the easiest way possible. And us giving them genetic material was a pretty sweet deal for a while. But it fell short of their goals. When asked why they violated the treaty, they were just like, we don't see what the big deal is. It wasn't working out. So we stopped following it. Like they had no concept of what a binding agreement or treaty was. They just did what we asked for a while because it was the easiest way forward for them. And then when they wanted to do more, it was only logical that they disobeyed us. Very focused on pure logic. Makes sense given their origins as worker drones without the ability to create. There are ruins on the moon but no actual settlements. Also, the Soviets put people on the moon first. They all died. Phil Schneider is an op like a lot of UFO kooks. Gramps' word, not mine. Some things he said are true and some are not. Every op is like this. I don't know about his death, but it was definitionally not a natural one or a suicide.
Did he mention anything about how long our species has actually been around?
He doesn't have that knowledge, but told me that the Draco, who predate us on this earth, were very interested in our evolution and studied us from the very beginning, trying not to interfere. They thought seeing our evolution would shed more light on theirs. So he thinks we evolved naturally.
Does the name William Rutledge rings any bell in your Gramps stories? Did he ever said anything about Antarctica?
Name doesn't ring a bell. Sorry. The only name he dropped was Richard Doty. Yes. Antarctica is chock full of stuff that the Draco won't let us touch. They are also really worried about the ice caps melting because of what's in the ice.
Tech or something living, cryptids, bacteria/viruses. What's their deal with cattle?
Ancient bacteria and viruses, he says. Things that are the reason why the Draco no longer live on the surface. He said there was a hive mind microorganism that the Draco were terrified of. Nothing very exciting. The same deal they have with people. Genetic material. The Greys are still trying to figure out how to keep cloning themselves without degenerating. If you ever hear a story from someone who claims to have met Greys, ask them how they talk to you. If they say anything other than telepathy, they're full of it. But the cat's been out of the bag for a while on that one, so the liars know to say that. They communicate via telepathy, which used to require more than one human present at all times in order to verify, for the record, what was said. They can't direct information to a single person. If you're in their sort of telepathic range, you'll pick up on it. We have developed, with their help, a technology that allows us to record this telepathic communication, so now these groups are no longer needed for record keeping. It's this thing that picks up these waves that contain what they say, and then synthesizes a voice. Like a radio. Hopkinsville encounter is real. Rogue Greys. They still don't know why they did what they did.
Draco, like reptilians, like are they running the gov and shit, like that conspiracy shit?
Reptilians, yes. Running the gov? No lamau. They work with the gov, but they don't really like doing so. Their interactions are limited. When we made contact with Greys, the cat was sorta out the bag, so they revealed themselves begrudgingly.
Did he mention anything about underwater crafts? What exactly do the eyes want with us? Will the government disclose the existence of the eyes, or just disinformation forever?
Yes. Underwater crafts are often directly involved with the base in the Pacific and then one in the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. The Draco want to study us, or so they say. Also, when I say Draco, I just mean the governing body we have contact with. There are other nations and cave systems around the globe that think differently, but I don't know jack about them, except there are some in South America and in Vietnam. The Greys want to use our genetic material. The Zetans are not sure how humanity can be of use to them, so they are cordial. The Edo are worried we're going to destroy ourselves. Gramps was optimistic, but I am not. Based on what happened when Ronald Reagan ended that initiative, I am pretty sure they'll hide it until the aliens up and do it themselves.
Was he ever stationed anywhere else? Hive mind microorganism dormant in Antarctica. Tiamat pill is the answer to this mystery. Surprised to see a reference to this from OP. Graves descend from the mantids. If this Anon is LARPing, he's posting accurate info from Carla Turner and David Jacobs. For once, OP is not a fag.
He only ever said Pacific base. Never heard of Tiamat pill. Interesting. Can you tell me more? I do not know who Carla Turner and David Jacobs are, but thanks. Haha. I should note I don't know if I believe this stuff. I just believe my Gramps believes it. If that makes sense. Again, he wasn't all there in his final months. All he knew about the moon were ruins and the fact that were dead Soviets up there when we first arrived. The dead Russians were an accident. By the time we landed on the moon, it had been deserted for hundreds of years.
What is the point of visiting Earth? We're way off in the boonies of our galaxy. Aren't there more interesting places to visit? Do the different types of aliens get along with each other?
Okay, maybe last one, because this is a good question and it's another one I asked him directly. The Draco were already from here and a lot of them still live here underground. The Greys are after our genetic material. And the other aliens followed suit. There are very few sentient alien races out there that they know of. We are all very rare. So naturally they're drawn to us. The Draco keep to themselves. The Edo are very nice apparently, but he never saw one or even knew anyone who did. Just that they existed and were interested in our civilization continuing on to interstellar travel. The Zetans are nice to us, but he thinks it's because they're trying to figure out if they can exploit us. The Greys are just Greys. Just little guys who don't really have personalities or culture or interests or anything beyond the survival of their race.
What if I told you? Alien hierarchy. Tiamat, the queen mother of the empire, telepathically monitors and controls as necessary her underlings, sort of like the Borg, is currently a disembodied consciousness since her original body was destroyed 6,500 years ago. Anunnaki, the first sentient beings, 15-foot-tall arthropods, antenna, eyes on stalks, psychically project themselves as green mantids because people can't process the way they really look without being horrified. These are the angels and demons of the Bible, the seraphim. Mantids, tall, spindly, white/light gray, black eyes, created by the Anunnaki. Reptilians, created by Anunnaki from dinosaurs, before humans and the flood, are just the dumb warrior caste. Tall Greys, created around the time of Noah's flood by hybridizing mantids with humans. Little Greys, biorobots without souls, perform menial tasks. Other, albino hybrids, made from tall greys and humans, not intended to blend in with society on Earth, are meant to live on the ships full-time. These are the way the greys want to look. Some still have eyes too big to pass for human. Blue and lavender irises, white hair. Human passing hybrids, the infiltrators. There are many here among us on Earth now. Many MIB encounters were really them. Why did a lot of the Draco leave Earth? Noah's flood destroyed the planet and they all had to go elsewhere to find a new home. This is called the Younger Dryas Impact Event. See Carolina Bays. You're not understanding the size of the asteroid. The kinetic energy vaporized the entire North American ice sheet up into the atmosphere, which is where all the water came from that caused the flood. It also didn't travel months to reach Earth in a way that could be intercepted. It was launched by Nibiru, moon-sized object, from close distance to destroy the planet. The circular shape in the lower right of Hudson Bay is one of several primary impact craters.
You have no idea what you're talking about and are extremely unintelligent. NGMI.
Hello Fed. Right on schedule. 1902 was the last time that object that has a 138-year orbit was around Earth. Going back to review that year, you'll find many evidences of its arrival, its effects, and the foreknowledge the elite had of it as evident with their abrupt disappearance and gradual re-emergence after 1902. To anyone reading, go research this year and you'll find interesting anomalies. The elite knew it was coming, but fortunately it was a nothing burger relatively speaking, and they realized they had another 138 years to prepare. These are what dumps, underground cities, underground bases and such are for.
Did he tell you about the giant 5 monoliths? I'm late to this thread, but can OP's grandpa or anyone else here shed light on if the alien races knew anything about the cataclysmic Earth cycle? Theories circling around nowadays that the sun goes through certain nova events that wipe away everything on the surface, Mars too, and our species has to basically start over again with what little we preserved in the previous cycles? I mention this because the Arctic and Antarctic used to be at the equator, hence the immense guarded secrecy of what used to thrive on those two continents in the previous cycle. This theory also ties into what the other announced said about dumps and deep underground cave systems all over the planet used to shelter the real dynastic families of Earth when the rest perish.
Maybe? He never said how many, but he said there were monoliths on the moon that are remnants from a past colony that didn't really go anywhere. Do not know. But he did tell me what a lot of PPL prob already know. Some of the IEs are concerned about how we are a danger to our own existence. The ETA in particular. Again, he never met or knew anyone who met them, but there was documentation he was privy to made sometime in the late 70s/early 80s that detailed meetings between the ETA and members of the extraterrestrial intelligence community, which he claims to have been a part of. That is literally the most I got out of him in terms of his job and what it actually was. He said they have seen other races like ours die out because of similar things we were doing to each other and the environment. The ETA pushed for disclosure and democratization of their energy sources in order to fix the issue of accelerated climate change, but you can prob guess why Reagan squashed that. Gramps is P-conservative, but he hates Reagan. Draco biology is similar to ours as they are from Earth and have a common ancestor, the same one we share with all animals. He doesn't know about the other races. Greys have been using human DNA in their cloning since the 50s, so by now there is probably some similarities. The Greys don't physically speak. The Draco speak in a weird growling clicking speech but can pronounce English words. But they don't like to speak English, so they use devices around their vocal cords with speakers that translate what they're saying to English. He says he has heard them speak English without the device before, and they had weird sentence structures on top of just sounding like growling. Like their words all strung together in a singular growl, and they structure their sentences like, if you were to say I'm going to the store, they would say go I store.
Thoughts on 1. Atlantis. 2. Christian God and why they seem to run after Christ gets invoked. 3. Demon, succubi, etc. 4. Time travel. What did he think of Bob Lazar? Did you ever ask him if the aliens had answers to questions like is God real? Does life have a purpose? Do we live in a simulation and so on? Also, my condolences. Your Gramps sounded like a cool guy.
Atlantis is based on a lot of different things. Was not one singular real place though. It's an amalgamation. Gramps was raised Catholic and died an atheist. I never have heard of eyes running when Christ gets invoked. Nope, no clue. Sorry, nothing on time travel either. He said anyone with a degree of prominence and financial gain in the UFO and conspiracy community is an op. He never explicitly said anything about Bob Lazar, but using what he said earlier about ops I can deduce Lazar is paid by the government. Yes. He stopped believing in God after meeting the eyes because they themselves, at least the ones he worked with, did not believe in a higher power, and they were convincing. He believed life had no purpose other than to make those around you happy. Never asked about the simulation. Okay guys, I think I might be done. Sorry to disappoint, but I have stuff to do in life and also starting to run up to the limit of what Gramps told me. I will leave you all with this. According to Gramps, the Democrats suck, but you should never vote Republican. Every person standing in the way of disclosure is a Republican. A few corporate Dems. But for the most part it is Republicans. IEs are people too. He thinks they are all mostly good, even if he is skeptical about some of their intentions. They are curious like we are. The Greys are the outlier because they're not exactly people, they're biological constructs meant to perform a function. No president after Nixon actually met an alien. Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden barely know anything about them, if at all. He thinks Trump definitely doesn't know for obvious reasons. They don't really abduct PPL anymore, but there are eyes from these species who come to us from outside of their governments, the ones we are in contact with, so you never know. His big piece of life advice for me was stop worrying. Enjoy life. Be a good person. Tell stories. Make people happy.